the idea of solitude versus what you knew solitude really was going to be, why did you do it?
It's a call. You know, it's since I was a kid, I've just loved being out by myself in the trees, and so it was a place I could go and just be myself and relax. I have a notion of who I am, a social persona, and identify with it, a concept. I'm Bob Kull, and I hold that in place by talking with you and by doing this and doing that, and so we mirror and we hold it in place. And when you get into solitude, that reflection disappears, and nature is very fluid, and so you start to fall apart. Things start to fall apart, and this self, this conceptual self that you think you are, starts to dissolve, and you feel like you're going to die. There's a sense of terror, it's sort of an existential angst, existential terror, and it can just blossom. And if you don't face it, you go crazy. If you can go through that, there's a sense of dissolving into the universe. And so there's an incredible feeling of being part of everything. And the small self that's defending and holding the universe at bay, that dissolves. And the sense of joy and peace and wonder is just incredible. There's a transformation of consciousness, and it's just like, whoa. There was more of an acceptance as time went by. I went for a long time trying to get rid of all the dark shadow stuff and I just wanted to be light and you know, filled with ecstasy and joy all the time. And a real change came when I started to accept that, okay, all of this is part of who I am. I'm not just the stuff I like, I'm all this stuff. Yeah. And it's like the weather, you know, storms roll through, nice weather, it's all part of it, and so there's internal weather as well. And when I came to relax and stop trying to own myself and control myself and be with myself instead, then things, it was still painful sometimes, and the cycles would still come through, but my relationship to the dark times changed.
What about the kitty? What kind of value did that bring?
Relationship with cat was hard. This wasn't part of my plan to take a cat. But there's red tide. There's a lot of red tide down there. And so the national parks told me, if you're planning to eat any shellfish, you need to take a cat, because that's what the local people do. Before they eat the shellfish, they give it to a cat, and then if the cat dies, they don't eat it. So that was the plan. Yeah. But it was didn't work, of course. You know, I got really connected to the cat. And
you didn't want to sacrifice it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like coming home from work, and you know, you open the fridge and there's some leftovers there, and they don't smell quite right, and you call your kid over and you say, here, you know, taste this.
Did you watch that Tom Hanks movie?
I did.
What did you think of that?
The second time I liked it better. One of the difficulties is for me, is that our culture is set up that we, especially the object relations psychologists, a lot of times will tell us that the only meaningful relationships we can have are with other human beings. And the only meaning of our lives is found through relationship. And so there's no meaning in solitude as such. And that, to me, is really partial, because I have a relationship with myself. And that's meaningful, and I have a relationship with spirit, or whatever we want to call the presence. And they didn't seem to get that at all in the Hanks movie. He never came into communication with the sky and the wind and the trees and the birds. And so the only capacity he had for relationship was another human being, and so he made a surrogate out of the volleyball. Mm-hmm. And so he never got through that little social self, that social identity, to just allow himself to be part of the physical universe and the biological universe. So I thought that was too bad. It's not like I think everybody should go off and spend a year in solitude, but I think we can all benefit from slowing down and spending some time with ourselves.
Now you see those rocks that he was walking on there right at the end. There's a very slick algae that forms on that. Very, very slick. It's like a sheet of ice, essentially. What didn't make it in the piece there that you should know about Bob is that Bob had a motorcycle accident years ago, so he lost part of his leg. So he has a prosthetic limb. While walking around on those rocks early in this trip, tumbles, tears both rotator cuffs, and stays. Gets a tooth that he needs to yank out. So how does he do it? Ties a string to it with a boulder, stands over. But like any good human being, he's like, can't do that. So he ends up tying it to the leg of a chair or a desk and yanking his head back. And he doesn't get off the island. How many of you would have stayed? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How many of you would have gone in the first place?